There is no series quite like The Legend of Zelda. It stands as one of the most iconic and influential franchises in all of gaming. Its imagery and themes have reached so deeply into popular culture that if we tried to trace it all, we'd be here all day. But inspiration is never a one-way street. Just as Zelda has left its mark on our media, the world has left its mark on Zelda. The series is drawn from a wide range of real-world mythologies and religions, and there's none quite so present in the land of Hyrule as Christianity. Hey, my name's Skyfoil. I'm a Catholic who likes analysing the Christian themes in the media we consume. I'm also a huge fan of the Legend of Zelda series, and I'd like to share how Christianity has shaped the identity of the Zelda franchise. Not just in the obvious visual designs seen in the earlier games, but also in the themes found throughout. That is to say that The Legend of Zelda is deeply Christian. The Legend of Zelda first released in 1986 on the Famicom Disk System in Japan. It's an adventure game that follows the protagonist Link on a quest to rescue the Princess Zelda from the evil pig demon known as Ganon. The game was a massive success for Nintendo, selling over 6.5 million copies worldwide and quickly cementing itself as a flagship franchise. Since then, the series has grown and evolved, establishing a unique identity that sets it apart from other fantasy adventure games. However, the core idea of a valiant hero embarking on a quest to save the land from evil has remained central to the franchise. This reflects a classic fantasy trope seen in works such as The Lord of the Rings and The Chronicles of Narnia, the authors of which, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis respectively, were both devout Christians whose faith influenced their writings. While there is little evidence to suggest that Christianity directly shaped the work of Shigeru Miyamoto in creating The Legend of Zelda, it is possible to interpret aspects of Link's character and the series' recurring themes through a Christian lens. Whether intentional or not, there are parallels to biblical themes which can be found throughout the franchise. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, I'd like to look at the Christian imagery and symbolism used throughout the franchise before we dive more into these thematic elements. And what better place to start than the beginning? The earliest games drew heavily from Christian iconography, which helped lay the groundwork for much of Zelda's early lore and identity. The first Zelda game, often referred to as Zelda 1, and Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link are filled with such imagery. It's possible that the intended in-world religion of Zelda was to be identical to, or at least heavily inspired on Christianity, before later developing into its own unique mythology. Cross-imagery appears throughout these early games, including on Link's shield and on the headstones of graves. Zelda 2 even had churches adorned with crosses atop their chapels, which Link can visit. The Adventure of Link also had a cross-shaped item, literally called the Cross, which grants Link the ability to reveal the blue Moas enemies, which are normally invisible. And hey, if we're going to talk about items from the first games, then of course we need to talk about the Book of Magic from Zelda 1. The Book of Magic, as it's known in the English translation, depicts a cross on it, and its name in the Japanese is quite literally Bible. Not exactly subtle, huh? However, it is the third installment in the series, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, that contains some of the most direct parallels to Christianity. Early in the game, after Link rescues Zelda from Hyrule Castle, the two take refuge in a sanctuary whose architecture strongly resembles that of a Catholic church. The building features stained glass windows, wooden pews, and an altar adorned with candles. The hidden passage, behind the altar, is also marked by a prominent gold structure, further reinforcing this resemblance, especially with its placement at the back of the altar, similar to that of a tabernacle, a structure found in Catholic and Orthodox parishes used for storing the consecrated Eucharist bread. It is here that Link receives his mission from the loyal sage who resides within the sanctuary. His appearance closely resembles that of an ordained priest, and this connection becomes more explicit when considering his title in other languages. In the original Japanese version, he is referred to as Shinpu, a term that specifically denotes a Catholic priest. Similarly, in the German version, he is called Guter Priester, meaning good priest, while the Italian version uses sacerdote, which also means priest. But the references to Catholicism do not end there. In order to enter the Desert Palace dungeon, Link must first obtain the Book of Mudor from the library, which allows him to translate Hylian text. He must make a wish to break the seal on the dungeon. During this moment, Link is shown kneeling on one knee and performing a hand gesture that closely resembles the sign of the cross. His hands move from his head to his chest, then across to his shoulder before he clasps his hands together. The act of kneeling on one knee is known as genuflecting, a gesture performed by Catholics upon entering a church as a sign of reverence and humility. The sign of the cross is another devotional gesture practiced before and after prayer. In the Catholic tradition, it is made from the left shoulder to the right, while in the Orthodox tradition it's performed from the right shoulder to the left. And if you're still not convinced enough about these parallels to Catholicism, then how about this official artwork for A Link to the Past, which depicts Link knelt praying before the cross of Jesus with a statue in the background that appears to depict the Mother Mary. You really cannot get more direct than this. That boy is Catholic. A Link to the Past also introduced one of the central pillars of Zelda mythology, the Triforce, specifically its origin story. According to the game's manual, the world was shaped by three unnamed golden goddesses. The god of power created the land and fire, the god of wisdom brought order and law, and the god of courage gave rise to life itself. Having completed their work, they departed, leaving behind the Triforce as a remnant of their power and a guiding force for the world. It wasn't until The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time that this mythology was expanded on. The three creators were given names: Din, Nehru and Furore. Each retained their distinct role in creation, and together they remained bound through the Triforce. It is here that we find parallels to the Holy Trinity of Christian theology and the creation story from the Bible. The Golden Goddesses are responsible for the formation of Hyrule, much like how God in the Book of Genesis is described as the creator of heaven and earth. In Ocarina of Time, it explains that Din formed the earth, Nehru established the laws that govern it, and Furore created the life that would inhabit and sustain that order. A similar progression appears in the Book of Genesis. The earth is first formed from the void, followed by the structuring of the natural world, and finally the creation of living creatures that would inhabit that world. And on the topic of the goddesses, let's talk about the Triforce. The Triforce exists as three distinct parts, yet is always understood as a single whole. Each piece is fully the Triforce, and together they remain the Triforce. This mirrors the theological description of the Trinity: three distinct persons yet one God. Not separate gods, but a unified being. While the Triforce is not exactly a theological statement, its structure provides a surprisingly effective visual analogy for explaining the concept of the Trinity, especially since the three-in-one idea of the Christian God can be quite a difficult concept to grasp. While we're talking about the Triforce and Ocarina of Time, it's worth looking at the Temple of Time, a prominent location found within the game. Its architectural design draws clear inspiration from Roman Catholic churches, with tall pillars, vaulted spaces and large glass windows that immediately invoke a sense of sacredness. The atmosphere is reinforced by the music within the temple, which carries a subdued, reverent tone reminiscent of Gregorian chant, a form of hymn traditionally sung by monks in worship. Save Data made a great video talking about the Temple of Time's music and its architectural inspirations, which I've linked in the visual description below. Beyond just aesthetics, the Temple of Time also serves a symbolic function to the game's narrative. It acts as the gateway to the sacred realm, the hidden dimension where the Triforce resides. This realm is sealed behind the Door of Time, located at the far end of the temple, and is accessible only under specific conditions. The spatial arrangement invites a comparison to Christian traditions, particularly within Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox theology, where the presence of Christ is believed to reside within the tabernacle, which is situated at the back of the church. In both cases, a sacred space lies beyond a threshold which is set apart from the ordinary layman, or Hylian, I guess, in this case. With Zelda pulling so much from Christian ideas early on in its franchise's life, it makes me wonder if these parallels to the Triforce and the Temple of Time to Christian theology were intentional or not. There are certainly more parallels to Christian theology from The Legend of Zelda. For instance, the origin story present in The Wind Waker, in which a great flood is used to suppress evil, bears a clear resemblance to the biblical account of Noah's Ark. There is also an argument to be made that the individual goddesses bear similarities to the individual natures of the Holy Trinity. However, I'd instead like to focus on two central characters to the series, that being Ganondorf and Link. There's much to talk about with these characters and how they relate to figures and themes found within the Bible. So let's begin with the King of Evil, Ganondorf. Ganondorf's presence in the series originates with his early form, the pig-like demon Ganon, who appears in the first Zelda game. It's not until Ocarina of Time that his human form Ganondorf is introduced as the ruler of a desert-dwelling tribe known as the Gerudo. Throughout the franchise, he's known by a number of different titles, including the King of Evil, the Demon King, and the Prince of Darkness. Similarly, in the Bible, Satan is referred to by various titles that have comparable themes. These include the Prince of this world, the Evil One, the Prince of the Power of the Air, and Beelzebub, which means Prince of Demons. The thematic overlap between the two is comparable. Furthermore, across the series, Ganondorf's primary goal remains consistent, to claim dominion over Hyrule. He frequently seeks to achieve this by obtaining the 3 pieces of the Triforce, thereby compelling the gods to grant his wish. His methods are often rooted in deception and manipulation. In Ocarina of Time, for example, Ganondorf feigns loyalty to the King of Hyrule before ultimately betraying him and seizing control of the kingdom. He does this also in Tears of the Kingdom. A similar pattern appears in The Wind Waker, where Ganondorf attempts to justify his actions by describing the hardships endured by the Gerudo under the gods. He presents his intentions as restorative, only to reveal his true ambitions after uniting the Triforce, where he declares, "Give Hyrule to me." The same Ganondorf, mind you, who centuries earlier had usurped the King of Hyrule in Ocarina of Time. In Christian theology, Satan's influence is likewise characterized less by direct force and more by deception. The name Satan is often interpreted as the accuser, and in John 8, he is described as the father of lies. Interesting also is how Ganondorf in Wind Waker accuses the gods of being responsible for Hyrule's destruction, when it was in fact them responding to him. He accuses the divine of wrongdoing, much like how Satan does. In both cases, the demonic leader operates through manipulation, with their intention being to usurp. However, as is prophesied in the Bible, Satan must one day face the light of Christ, and likewise in The Legend of Zelda, Ganon is always forced to face the light that is Link. Link, in many ways, serves as the central figure of the Legend of Zelda franchise. In contrast to Ganon, who seeks to usurp power, Link's role aligns more closely with that of a divinely appointed hero. Across multiple entries in the series, he's not driven by personal ambition per se, but instead responds to a higher calling placed upon him. This is most evident in games like A Link Between Worlds, Ocarina of Time, and Skyward Sword, where Link experiences a prophetic dream or vision prior to the beginning of his journey. This narrative pattern reflects a broader biblical theme in which individuals are called or revealed to something prophetic. Examples of this can be found in the Book of Daniel and the Book of Revelation, in which Daniel and John respectively receive divine messages in the form of visions and dreams. In Skyward Sword, this parallel is made even more explicit where Link is directly called by Fi, a servant of the goddess. This mirrors instances in the Bible where divine messengers, usually angels, are sent to deliver God's will. A well-known example of this is the Annunciation, in which the Virgin Mary is visited by the angel Gabriel and is called to her role. Another notable aspect of Link's character is his silence. Unlike many protagonists, Link rarely speaks and instead allows his actions to define him. This characteristic kind of reminds me of Saint Joseph, who, despite playing a very significant role in the biblical narrative, is not recorded to have spoken. He receives his mission to nurture both Mary and Jesus, he understands it, and he acts silently and obediently on it. He's known as the Terror of Demons, because of his unshakable faith and his obedience to God. And hey, while no such similar title is given to Link, the forces of darkness most certainly tremble at the sight of him. Actions speak louder than words, as they say, and in the case of Link, he expresses virtue through faithful actions. Kindness doesn't need a reason. Link aids those in need without question, more often than not placing himself in danger. He does it not for personal gain, but because it's the right thing to do. This selfless charity that Link exercises is a cornerstone of Christian virtues. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility consider one another as more important than yourselves. In many ways, Link is a Christ-like character. He acts in humility and in the service of others, clinging to what is good and hating what is evil. He embodies the true spirit of a hero, which I feel is an aspect of his character often lost on people. Link is good, and characters like Link show us the value of being good to others. The media we consume has a way of shaping how we see the world. It influences our thoughts and perceptions, sometimes in ways that we don't even notice. Because of that, it's worth engaging with media that leaves a positive mark on us, and for me, The Legend of Zelda is one such type of media. Beyond its engaging gameplay, interesting stories, and rich lore, it quietly promotes virtues that mirror those found in the Bible. Courage, self-sacrifice, and the pursuit of righteousness. These are noble things that all true warriors should strive for. From its inception, Christian iconography was a staple part of Zelda, and while the series has since distanced itself from direct Christian references like those found in A Link to the Past, the influences left behind from Christian theology continue to be a core part of the identity of The Legend of Zelda. Thanks for making it to the end. This video took quite a long time to make, so if you enjoyed it, please give it a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching now. Ta-ra!